5, 3, 2, 1. Hi, everybody. Good morning here, October 14th, 9:30. It's early.
Is it really?
It's October 14th.
So we made it through
the 13th.
October, the Friday the 13th. Good.
Your beloved Browns, mine too, play tomorrow. We'll talk about that in a little bit.
The Houston Texans.
Yeah, it's going to be tough.
See, I know.
We passed on Watson. We'll see how that works out. AJ Hodel, CEO and founder of Athletic Scholarship Corporation. To my far right, my friend, business partner, attorney, comedian, funny as heck, for real, funny. Michael Chiselka, and in the middle, Saved by the Bell, former NFL, still a legend, Mr. Bob Golic.
Let's Saved by the Bell get top billing now.
Because it's awesome when you work with Slater and, was it the same Screech?
Screech.
Oh boy. Guys, BeyondAir.com studio out of beautiful Cleveland, Ohio. Appreciate the
Beyond
use
Air.
of the facility.
That's
BeyondAir.com.
That's like simple.
Yes.
Beyond Air.
BeyondAir.com. So, Bob, a little background. I mean, I know you've probably been asked this 100 times. I know your bio, but you want to share the real you with the audience. It'd be awesome.
Okay.
Your background.
It's exactly look it up.
Wikipedia.
It's on Google. It's on Wikipedia. Look it up. I don't know. I haven't looked at it lately on Wikipedia. Every once in a while, somebody adds something in that is unflattering.
I added something this morning.
Did you really?
Yes.
You son of a gun. Did you that I was going to be here?
Yeah, I would say everybody knows you're going to be here. We're
Yeah.
glad you were here and found a place.
But you know what? I actually pulled out front, and I was sitting out front, and I tried to text you, and you were
Busy.
busy.
A little bit.
And then I came around the corner, I saw cars, and I went, at least there's cars.
And you saw the Lamborghini
And I
and you
saw
figured
the
it was
Lamborghini.
Michael, right?
Yeah.
Crime
Yeah,
days.
but whose Bentley is that? I mean, that thing was sweet.
Whose is that? Yours?
Probably.
No.
That's right.
All right, so
So anyway,
Notre Dame.
Notre Dame.
Legendary
Well,
family.
I started here in Cleveland.
St. Ed's,
St.
right?
St. Joe's. St.
That's
Joe's.
a nice place.
That was back in the old Crown Conference when you had St. Joe's, St. Ed's, Cathedral Latin, Chanel, and Padua, and we were they called it the Crown Conference. It was all a bunch of private schools, and I don't want to say we dominated high school football, but we were significantly leaders. We were very good teams, and so Ed's and Joe's were pretty much and that's when I started kind of battling against Tom Kuzno.
That was your Ed's?
He was Ed's, I was Joe's,
Bo.
and it was a great time. Then we got, like I said, we got into wrestling, and then it was me and Kuzno, and in the football, I played guard, and on offense I played linebacker and defense. So on offense, I actually had to go and block him, which was easy.
Very easy.
Oh wait, you're not listening, are you? No, I'm just kidding.
So, really the staple, we're going to go off the path because I never stay structured. I was never structured in my life.
That's okay.
So, really the platform of our show, and it goes out as advice to student athletes and parents that are dealing with that college to high school to college recruiting process. And one of the biggest questions I always get is, should you play one sport? Should you be a specialty guy? And obviously you dominated wrestling and football. Went to Notre Dame. Your family has a history there.
Yeah.
And I know
I was the first one there.
Yeah, right. And we're not going to talk about Mike Golic. That's off limits.
Yeah.
We're not talking about him. He doesn't answer me when I message him.
Really?
No.
Really?
No,
And he
no.
can't grow a beard either.
So, what's your advice? And I know a lot of people say, well, things change, times are different. Yeah, technology, there's a lot of ways to market yourself. I think it's actually even harder than when you went through it and I went through it because you didn't have so many distractions. So the coaches didn't have options, so many options because
Right.
the process was so tough. Having your own, let's say you got a high school son right now, would your advice be to your own son specialize in one sport
No.
or play multiple?
No, I hate the idea of specialization. It goes, you know what it goes to? It goes to the issue of overwhelming the kid in one direction. At this point, you're taking the enjoyment out of the kid and saying, listen, whether you like it or not, this is all you're going to do. When my daughter was at Menor High School, she played volleyball, she played basketball, and loved playing, and but got kind of pushed in one direction because, again, these days they make it so that seems like to be the norm. I actually went to a couple of high schools, Solon High School. By the way, I don't know if you saw the game last night, but that was good against Menor. But they had Solon, a couple other ones where I would go in and talk to some of the linemen because they knew these linemen had wrestling backgrounds, and they also felt like because of the way that a lineman works, in close, hand fighting, leverage, balance, all that stuff, that wrestling is the perfect thing for it, because that's what I did back in the day. I wrestled in high school, I wrestled in college too. And so I would go in and speak to the parents and to the kids and say, listen, if you like wrestling, do it. So at least at Solon High School, especially, they were trying to get some of the linemen to get out there and do the additional stuff. But ultimately, I think it comes down to, you're in high school, let the kids do what they want to do. And if it's multiple sports, let it be multiple sports. It's not going to change anything.
Yeah, because you don't get the opportunity when you get to college. It's just so demanding now. And
yeah.
I mean, obviously you have Gins and guys that run track and do football, but it's very limited.
And plus guys want to get out of college, I mean, as quick as possible.
To go pro.
Yeah.
And make the real money.
I used to say, hey, if you're playing well, get your 4 years in, because, football's not going to last forever. You only get a couple of years, and then you're going to have to get a real job. And now I just go, ignore that. Because now if you get a couple of years in, if you handle your money fairly well, then you should be okay for quite a bit.
Yeah, and we're going to talk about that in a minute with Michael. I mean, obviously, Michael, the application to specialization in the legal film or legal field, you have to kind of leave a little bit more specialized, obviously.
Well, whether it's physical development or mental development, you're at that critical age from 12 to 16.
Right.
Where the more you're exposed to, the more you might tap into what their true talents are.
Yeah.
I mean, when you train differently for wrestling or football, the coordination and development and what their passion is, the parents should be looking to see what comes out of the kid rather than projecting their wishes onto them. Don't you think?
I think so. I think when you're talking high school kids, you're talking. Why would you pigeonhole them? Why wouldn't you let them? If your kid wants to run track and he's a receiver, why wouldn't you do that? I mean, why wouldn't you let him work on his speed, that sort of thing? If he's a lineman, wrestle, shot put, I don't care. Something that pushes another part of his physiology, because not just mentally, but from a physiological standpoint, the more you do, the more complete your training becomes. If you do one thing and one thing alone, you are good for that. But if anything changes, you've got to react differently. And I think that the more you can do, we used to say that in the pros when you're getting towards the end of your career. The more you can do.
Right.
I tried to learn how to long snap my last couple of years. It didn't work.
I mean, that's like saying that if you're inclined or want to be a lawyer, that's all you should do is read history.
Right.
Well, no, you expose yourself to literature and science, because then you become a more well-rounded.
Right.
It makes you a better attorney as well.
Yeah, I mean, many times when you quote Socrates or Nietzsche or something, and the jury sits there and goes, "What? He must be really smart."
There you go. Whatever works.
Never works.
So both you guys, I'm not a horrible actor. Never tried, never will. You did.
Well, you're
Saved
acting
by the
right
Bell.
now.
No, I'm just talking. I'm having a
Technically.
good time.
Yeah.
And this guy, I've watched him on stage. Worked with Sam Kinison, the late great, on tour.
Wow.
So how much does that comic relief transition into the courtroom and obviously moving forward, working with athletes and the agency?
I won't say that there isn't a direct correlation between the entertaining and being funny in the courtroom, but being able to walk out and connect right away with an audience or a jury or a number of people, because people's biggest fear has always been public speaking.
Right.
So in that respect, my time on stage certainly, helps with courtroom or meeting new families or business and stuff like that. But
I mean, it's like cross training.
exactly.
I mean, I do a radio show during the week, and on Fridays I bring my wife in, and we kind of change it around. A lot more women call in, and it's kind of cool. And she's been doing it for years and years now. And when my daughter started doing a Facebook Live thing, and my wife went on to help her, where she would have to just sit there and talk to a camera and know that there's people out there watching. And my wife just, in fact, she said last week, she goes, if it wasn't for the radio stuff, I'd be having a hard time right now. But, because I did the radio, now I feel like I can walk into a situation like that and know how to deal with a camera, know how to deal with the fact that you're talking to a camera, that nobody's really there, and be comfortable enough. Like you're saying, I think that, if you're not comfortable when you're up there litigating, I think the jury sees that right away.
Plus, people always would ask, how do you write your material? For me, it was always a matter of, it just writes itself. I'll give you an example. I've been working on a case where somebody came into my office and they were a victim of identity theft. Mm-hmm. And the first question that popped in my head was, why, when somebody steals your identity, don't your bills start going to their house?
Wow. I didn't even think about that.
It doesn't happen.
There's probably some that do. Those are the stupid
right.
identity thefts.
Let's talk about when you were going through this recruiting process, and I know it's different today. I consult parents at this 13 years into this. I've seen and heard it all. Yeah. And Michael, ironically, when we were in a meeting last week, we talked about our agency and ethics and not giving out Rolexes to try to get the first round guys, and what happens on Monday? FBI cracks down, basketball programs, millions of dollars.
Right.
Obviously, the agency's built on organic growth, dealing with high school athletes. When they're in high school, like the Travis Kelce's, those guys, grooming, getting them into college, and then helping them thereafter. That's our platform, and building a infrastructure of consultants that are the best in tax and marketing and business planning. So those guys have money. Obviously you weren't paid the money they pay these guys today. It's an absorbent amount of money.
Yeah.
And you've obviously
significantly less.
You've made it work. The guys
right.
today blow through it pretty quickly.
Yeah.
And let's be honest, just because you make millions doesn't change your education, your demographic,
right.
where you're from, and people take advantage, guys.
It can affect your judgment though, and when you're looking and you go, boy, I can buy this car or I can buy this car.
Yeah.
And a lot of times you buy this car and you put yourself in a little bit of. When I played, it was, hey, go buy a sedan or go buy the new Porsche. And at the time I had just started playing for the Patriots, and I said, you know what, I'm really going to put myself on the edge if I buy the Porsche.
Right.
And some guys some guys didn't have or don't have the direction to be able to do that. You come out of high school and you go, I'm getting everything I've ever wanted, and they tell themselves that they deserve it now, right. And they go after it regardless of where their money is.
Yeah. And when we talked in a meeting, I said, hey, Michael, I'm going to bring on a former FBI and private investigator for security detail. He has, guards and investigators, and it sounds crazy. And as we talked about it further, it was like, look at the guys that come into town for drafts or meetings with the Browns, or you go to a hotel in the Bears, and a girl sees you. Next thing you know, you're wrapped up in some drama. And once someone accuses you of something, your stock falls, plummets.
Oh, absolutely.
And it could be the furthest thing from the truth. So my envision was, with our clients, is we're going to put a security guy with you when you're out in those public scenes, because we need a witness, we need stuff. It's just a different world today, isn't it?
Yeah.
Totally different.
You see, first off, you see the players and the college pro players. They're a little bit more away, and maybe that's because from the fans, and maybe that's because they've been advised to not to get too mingled in. I hear people all the time say, we rubbed elbows with you, literally at the bar. We'd be sitting there getting a beer, and they'd be right next to you. But I think it was a simpler time, a less litigious time. That they're just. Nowadays, it's like everybody feels like they can be a victim, whether they are or not, and they want to get something for that. And you turn around every time and somebody's being sued for something, or they're trying to figure out if they can sue somebody for something.
Plus, before you said you used to rub elbows with friends in a bar. Now you're on video with friends in a bar.
Yeah.
Because everybody's phone is a camera. There's no place to hide or have a private meeting, and you just have to assume that, or can't assume right off the bat that everybody's intention that you meet for the first time is sincere.
Isn't it
honest,
amazing
and
sometimes when some of these guys get themselves in trouble and you realize, you say, dude, everybody's got a camera.
Yeah.
And it's like they're so focused on trying to have fun that they don't even pay attention to what the inevitability is if you do that and somebody videos it.
Right. I mean, the people say Facebook, but in my profession, it's more like evidence book.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's good.
I mean, you can indict a ham sandwich today.
Right.
I really believe that. I think, and that was the main thing when we deal with these athletes is how do we protect them and look at long term. Obviously, you get compensated to do a great job, and I think the great job is keeping the public relations, keeping things clean, but making sure they're successful after, because the money dries up pretty quick. And have you ever fell victim to? I've dealt with Terry Bradshaw in business, and we've talked, and I think he invested in a scam, an ostrich egg, some crazy stuff. Has anyone ever approached you back in the 80s and said, hey, Bob, I got this great idea, I need a little bit of money? And I mean... Yeah.
Yeah, there was a thing on athletic shoes that I got involved in, and it was a significant... The guy's still in jail, but he had no assets left, so I had no assets left either. Well, I was fine, but it was one of those things where you want to get involved, and again, even if you get to the point where, like, you know what, I want to get involved in something so I can have something afterwards. Yeah. Even then, you got to be careful. Even then, you can't just say, hey, I found a great deal, I got to do this, and that way I'll be set up for years afterwards, and I'm really preparing myself for the future, because there are people out there just waiting to get a hold of you and use you for as much as they can.
Do you think the NFL Players Association and Michael and I have knowledge of, the rigorous acceptance and what you have to go through? Do you think they've done a better job protecting athletes?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, back when I came out of high school, the guys the schools that recruited us were, I remember Michigan State coming in, and they the one guy goes, Howard, I forget his name. Anyway, he goes, we're talking, and they want me to come in and all this, and one time he stops at the school and he says, some of these kids, taking money and cars and stuff, and it's just, what do you think about that, Bob? And I'm like, well, I think that you should pick a school based on where you want to play and education and all that. And I found out about 2 months later that he was indicted on like 30 counts of offering cars. At which point I said, God, if I had just said, it's fine, I would have had a new car.
Not a state shift automatically.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean,
can you pick colors?
And when I played, it was, great job, and here's money, and here's... And I remember going in the recruiting process, and there was always females. It was always stay for the weekend, and it's just really being a mature man now, and a father and a husband, and just being a man. You look back and go, this is really bad, because as a young man, I mean, your priorities are backwards. Yeah. And these coaches continue to do it. Why? Because there's millions of dollars being paid. It's greed. I think the college players should be paid.
The only school that did that for me was Alabama. I mean, I went in the back, I met Bear Bryant, and when I came back to the front of the office, it was just full of girls, and they're all wearing, red and white and big red A's on their sweaters, and I'm just like, what's that A stand for? But they all sat down and sat around me and going, oh, I love your accent. Say pajamas. Pajamas? Oh, that's so sweet. Then they take you around and show you the school.
See,
end of story.
In high school, I was on the debate team. I didn't get a single offer of cars or girls or travel to debate.
You should have been able to negotiate it, though.
That changed when you're on a cruise ship and you're a comedian.
Wow.
You make a woman laugh. It's an asset.
But then you're stuck for the next 10 days.
Can't get off.
Championship moments for you. What do you look back and say that's just a moment, championship moment? I'm sure you have tons of them, and playing with the Browns and the good days. It was a good period.
Yeah.
Remember, that was good football back then. But
Yeah.
what really sticks out as a championship moment for you, where you just
Somebody just reminded me of 8th grade at St. Mary Magdalene High School. A guy came up to me, and usually they say, "Hey, I knew you from high school. I played with you here or there all along the way." And the guy comes up, he goes, "I played at Holy Family. It was the city championship at Euclid High School in 1971 or something like that, in 6 inches of mud." And the guy goes, "Yeah, we played against each other." And I go, "Oh my God, I totally forgot that." And we won 6-0. So it really kind of brought back that thought. But as far as championships go, you guys know it's always, you're always battling for that and getting as close as you can. So sometimes, even if you don't win the championship, it's a championship moment.
Right.
Notre Dame, we were able to get a national championship in 1977. As a matter of fact, next weekend we're going down there for some reunion, some anniversary of 1977, and going to hang out and shoot the breeze. But it was really an amazing time. We played against Earl Campbell and all these other great players, and they were supposed to just wipe the Cotton Bowl with us, and it turned out, I accidentally said in a paper one time, "Oh, we're going to blow them right out of the stadium." And I got called into the office the next day, and Dan Devine goes, "You can't say things like that. I mean, it's just, it inflames the other side and blah, blah, blah." And then we did it. So I was right.
Right. You got it forecast. Michael, what about you? I mean, I know we try to keep this thing off of sports. It's not a sexy topic all the time, recruiting. But you've had a dynamic run, going from a comedian to attorney. And so a lot of championship moments in Cuyahoga County, or do you have to go to Lake County?
Well, I'll tell you, it's an interesting, as much of a feeling of walking out on stage and having the audience go nuts, or it's still just as powerful a moment to walk out and say, "Ladies and gentlemen of the jury." I mean, when you have that responsibility, ours may not be, celebrated in front of, but when you do good or right by, somebody, or I'm a criminal defense attorney, so I have built a reputation of being the guy you call if you didn't do it. So I've taken some people to trial that were wrongfully accused of things, and when you get a chance to turn around and walk out of the courtroom, that's a championship moment too, especially for them.
Can you tell the difference between those who didn't do it and those who might have, but they deserve representation?
Well,
I mean, that seems like it would be a tough thing.
It is, except I have no qualms about defending the Constitution in every trial.
Okay.
And hold the state to their burden. So that's, I don't have a problem with that. But like I said, I've had more than one person come in, looks like somebody else, identity or the facts turn out to be different. I had won a case one time because they had the snapshot in their car, that one of those tracking devices, insurance guy, and it proved that they weren't at the location long enough to be able to do the crime.
Wow.
So for him to turn around and walk out and get his life back was, I felt pretty good about that.
Yeah, that's good.
And then relentlessly negotiate contracts with NFL owners, NBA owners. That's going to be absolutely fun.
But listen to what you guys have been saying over the years about how sports has changed. The old adage of, if it sounds too good to be true, it usually isn't, or is too good to be true. That hasn't changed, and that's the same in business. That's the same in sports. That's the same in negotiation. And people that come to my office that have been burned in business or made bad decisions are falling victim to the same kind of things, where if they just step back, use a little common sense, trust the people they're with, and you can't beat that. There's no substitute for that.
Most of these contracts you see today have so many clauses, outs, and numbers, and it's Moneyball everywhere you turn out. Statistically, you'll see guys that you think, well, why didn't he get that carry? I mean, even look back at Marshawn Lynch on the 1 yard line, and a part of me being an analytic and knowing the game, I'm like, maybe there's some number that prohibited him from running the ball because he's got bonuses.
That's been, and I don't know, I mean, it still is an issue, but I mean, compare a bonus payment to their salary now. Back in our day, you could almost double your salary. When it came down to getting a bonus. In fact, a lot of times they use incentive bonuses to try and sweeten the pot when you are, they're basically saying to you, hey, you know what, we know you're good, but if you're really that good, you're going to prove to us by doing this or having this many tackles or whatever. So And we'll kick up your thing. And as a player too, and as a representative of a player, I mean, understandably you can add those in, but you can't count on those.
No.
I mean, you've got to go and you've got to get the kids whatever they can get legitimately without these bonuses. The bonuses are supposed to be what they are, bonuses,
Right.
not considered part of your salary.
Ever get a bounty bonus? Because they're around still, they'll always be around.
No, I never got a bounty for it, but we did it.
An Elway bounty? Never?
No, we did a pro bono, but that was just because we wanted to.
Because you wanted to.
Yeah.
Moving back from Cleveland to LA,
Mhm.
you were, Michael, you've been around
I
too.
lived there
And
for
you
a while,
guys are
too.
back here in Cleveland. I'm trying to get out. What brought you back? Was it the show was over? And
No matter where you go, no matter what you do,
The wife.
there's always one home.
Mhm.
Home is still always home.
Yeah.
So. And as long as, if you don't lose the ability, there's always an airport. If you want to travel, if you want to go see something and do something, but it's still nice to come home. I mean, I spent 25 years in LA and another 6 in Miami and came back here. It's not a bad place to live.
Yeah.
It really isn't this part of the country.
My oldest had just finished high school out there, and I started noticing that my dad was getting not just old, but a little more frail.
Mhm.
And I thought, maybe it's a good time, and we kind of wrapped it up and brought everybody back, and it was like the best thing. I mean, raising kids in the Midwest, you can say what you want that you can raise them anywhere, but I don't know. I just think that there's a nice set of values that exist here that possibly don't exist out in California.
I would agree.
Yeah, it's. I've been out Midwest too. Moved a little bit for career opportunity, and it's different here. I mean, cost of living, and
Yeah.
we're back on sports town. I mean, unfortunately, Indians just lost, but we're still a great sports town, and the Browns, I think, may figure it out before we die. I hope.
I have that shirt. Just one before I die.
Eesh. How has the NFL, the community, alumni, embraced you as a celebrity and one of the,
Now, you're talking about how does the NFL
or maybe just the
or
Browns?
the
I mean, do
community?
you feel? I know being a former athlete myself, and there's a brotherhood, and you always have.
Yeah.
You run into somebody you haven't seen in 15 years, and you felt like you were with them yesterday.
Yeah.
It's just the oddest
Oh,
thing.
it's
People don't
amazing.
understand.
Yeah,
it.
we did that last year with the 1986 team reunion, and it was just, we hadn't seen so many of these guys, and it was like, I mean, we were telling lies and stories about the old days, like it was just going out of style. But now the NFL and teams, they say, oh yeah, veterans, oh alumni, but they're so geeked on doing what they're doing now that they'll appoint somebody to watch. If some of those alumni call, you take the call. And right now, Kevin Mack, who from our day is the liaison, and so it's not that they ignore us. It's not that they are excited to have us around. It's just that we're there. We're there if they need us, is what it feels like sometimes. But then again, I mean, you might get offended at first because, hey, we're the last time we won anything. but the reality is, they've got to, and maybe especially because of that, they've got to focus on what they've got now. They can't really miss. But I've always said that with the way kids are coming out now, it probably, I feel, would be a better idea to bring the alumni in, to work with these kids, at least to figure out social situations. Jim Brown was just spectacular with that. I mean, I used to sit with him at practice sometimes, and he'd see some kid running with his pants hanging down, and he'd just be like, I'm going to have a talk with him. And when Jim Brown talks, people listen. Yeah.
So the kneeling and the politics have turned me off. I love football. Yeah. My wife turns on. I'm like, I don't want to watch it.
Yeah.
That's the only time you get a break from reality, and that's what sports bring to the table. And now it's completely, high school kids are doing it. Mm-hmm. Kids are getting kicked off teams, and parents are saying, well, they have a right. And
no, don't.
I mean, it's hard for me to talk politics because I end up cutting my business in half because some people feel strongly, but I think
I've already done that. My radio show
You
is-
just tweeted something, and you got a lot of traction. What did you say actually?
I don't
Or do you want to
remember.
repeat it?
I don't remember my last tweet. CTE. But my radio show was mostly politics and non-sport stuff, and I'm more leaning towards the conservative side. So when it comes down to it, when it comes to kneeling on the sideline for the national anthem, I say stand up, and when it's over, kneel, or before you do it, kneel.
Yeah.
And of course, the argument is, well, we have an opportunity to show and to be involved in change. Well, so but not during the national anthem. Change before the national anthem or after the national anthem. You don't even have to do it on the field. And the thing that frustrates me is that there are still people out there saying we have the constitutional right to do this. And as many times as I say, you do not. You do not have
That's
the
an employer.
constitutional right. You
You're
work
an
for
employee,
somebody.
right.
You're in the office, technically.
Right.
And if he says, don't do this, I mean, most of our contracts have, and I don't know what they have now, but they used to be called conduct detrimental to the team.
Yeah.
If you did something that made the team look bad, it was
Right.
that vacuous. It was
Still have it.
just
Still have it.
still vague, and so it left them a lot of wiggle room. So we knew that was there. But there's a lot of people saying, I'm standing up for what I believe, and I have the right to do that. You go right ahead, but you also have the right to suffer the consequences of what your boss does to you. Unfortunately, for the big picture, the workers that you have, I mean, if you're at a machine shop and some guys decide to
Walk out, you're closed.
walk out, you're closed. But if you're a football team and one of your star players kneels down and you're Jerry Jones and said you're not going to play, how do you do that? I mean, you're going to have half the fans hating you because you didn't sit them down. You're going to have half of them hating you because you did sit them down. You stick to your guns. It's a really kind of a sticky situation for them.
But see, I don't want to just see symbolism. If you want to change the world, let's see some substance.
We'll do it in the off season. You don't hear
Right,
anything
exactly.
in the
Have a
off season except
discussion.
for guns and marijuana.
You have
Right.
you have Tuesdays off. Go out and do something.
And
on
do
Tuesday.
something on Tuesdays.
We used to do that all the time.
And here in Cleveland, they should be careful because if they don't start winning pretty soon, they're going to look around and see the fans kneeling during the game.
Or sleeping.
They used to say if you sit close enough, they'll ask you to play.
Right.
And coming back, and it's been brutal, and it magnifies the losing culture that their eye's not on the prize. We got a receiver that drops passes, hasn't caught a ball, and he's dancing around on YouTube and Twitter. And I remember the Jerry Rices. I met him when I was in college, and the work ethic and the discipline, and Perry, and you guys just come to Berea and train.
Yeah.
And I used to go down there and just watch and basket it. And I see a difference in kids today is that there's a kid that's diehard and parents, and the high school coach gets real upset and says, that parent's just a pain in the tail. And I'm like, no, that's the squeaky wheel that cares about their child's future. You're just not used to that anymore because the dynamic is you got a kid here and a parent that's zealous and train hard and spend the money on everything, marketing, training, all the things you need to do today. And then you got the other parent that just says, "Go ahead and sit on your ass and watch YouTube videos all day."
Up to the Levon ball level.
Right.
At that point, you've gone a little bit too far.
Did you buy a pair of shoes? No.
No. They were like $900.
Yeah.
Are they 900 now?
I
They're
can
like
only
$400.
afford one.
Yeah.
No, did you
Yeah,
get
I
left?
can get-
Did you get left or right? I got right because I'm Republican. Did you get left?
Yeah.
You are.
Just little
I know.
buttons
Well,
left in the box.
hey, I love you, and we know each other for a long time. You still have that Bill Clinton picture with you and Bill together?
Yes, they do.
Did you have that one with Harvey?
No.
Never mind. Current event. Sorry.
So, what's your being a former pro athlete going through Notre Dame? I mean, it was one of my favorite schools actually. Matt Lou Holtz went on a recruiting trip,
Mine too.
and he said, "You won't make it here academically. Good luck." And they still say that. They actually care about grades, one of the few. But what's your best advice being a father of athletes yourself and dealing with training and recruiting and just dealing with coaches? What do you think is like maybe your recipe, 3 steps to success if there is one?
Well, I mean, when we played, and I don't see it being any different, although I can see interpretations of it being differently now. My dad, I was always raised with get the education, as I said before, because you don't know when your career is going to be over. Especially when you get coming out of college, you don't even know if you're going to make it. And but now there's so many people that think they're going to, and again, their support system too says you're going to do this. So do your workouts, do your running, do all this before you do the studying. And I think if people realized how many guys try and don't make it, and how much money they have left when they're after the year or their 2 years, I think people would pay attention to it more. But unfortunately, so many people are blowing smoke to them that they're being told, "You're the guy. You're going to be the guy," and they start planning their life around that.
Yeah, been entitled from the beginning.
Yeah.
It still comes back to what we were saying with your first question about whether you limit the kid and specialize.
Mm-hmm.
I still think the more you don't live your life in a bubble, whether it's a training bubble or a small world bubble, the more you expose them to meet other things. That's why the point you made about the alumni is so interesting. The same way you should bring people into it, like a cancer ward and show them not to smoke, is let them have an honest conversation with guys that said, I made $1 million and I lost it all.
Yeah.
And balance that out with the unbridled optimism of you can do anything and you're invincible. That doesn't last, forever.
No, it's a great point. You have an opportunity, and got a lot of great guys in Cleveland that have been through a lot and would know how to help. But then again, when you're trying to help somebody, they've got to be willing to listen too. So unfortunately, and even when we were young guys coming in, we're smarter than everybody else. 1982, my first year with the Browns, we went on strike, and I was just like, dude, I just got here. Coach, I want to play.
Yeah. So did you cross him?
No. I stayed because I didn't want to get beaten up. But and plus I was part of the team, and the team did that. But we found out that it was about that the older guys wanted some extra. The alumni wanted some extra money or something in their pensions, or actually wanted a pension.
I remember that.
And we were just like, oh, come on, dude, we want to play football. Quit begging for more money. You had your time. And at the time, you were this punk kid.
Now
Going,
you
I
look
just
back
want to
now,
play.
you
Now
say,
look
makes
now.
sense, yeah.
Every time they come out with a new collective bargaining agreement and they say, oh, yeah, the last thing they talked about was pension increases. You go, why are we the last thing? And unfortunately, it never gets looked at as the NFL as a whole. I watched a few years back, a book came out. It was book videos, 75th anniversary of the NFL, and I went back and it was in book form, and I read through the whole thing. And I looked at a lot of pictures too, but it was, it gave you a sense of feeling like you're part of something bigger than just yourself. I mean, that's the way I played at Notre Dame too. I mean, one day I was walking across the campus and I walked past the Rockney Memorial. I'm like, oh my God, I'm playing the same place where New Rockney played. And it just made you feel, made me feel proud that I was part of something big. And unfortunately, you watch guys play today, and it seems almost like it's become a very individualistic, as you were kind of leading to before. You're losing, you've lost every game, you get a sack, and you're jumping up and down like you just cured cancer.
Right.
And it's just, plus you also, when we did something good, we jumped up and we grabbed each other and said, let's go. And now guys are almost maiming their teammates so to try to get away from them so they can get out in the open and face the camera and go, So it's just a very individualistic. Is it wrong? In my opinion it is, but it's what it is for these guys, so that's what they deal with.
I think fantasy sports have eroded at the team concept.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
Because the colors, the stripes, the Rockney tradition, the college tradition, you were part of something that fabric held you together.
Yeah.
Now you got everybody sitting in the stands on their phone, and who cares what the team is doing because the guy that on your back has got 6 points for you, so you're not rooting the way you used to.
I think a part of it also is, and as much as it has helped some people, it's hurt others. When free agency came in '87, the Plan B and that went through the whole thing. We had guys at the time. who would, they traded free agency for a salary cap. And so we had a lot of guys that were young stars coming up who made a lot. We had old veterans who were stars, and so the guys that had played 4, 5, 6 years and were just starting to come into their own and were going to start getting a good paycheck, they were cut because you had paid too much to the outside, and that was just the way it had to be. So you started seeing that your backups were your bench wasn't as complete as it should be because you've got young guys and old guys. And it just seemed to me that with the free agency, and it came out to the fact that people sit there and they'll look at the camera and say, yeah, I can't wait. I'm so excited to play for the Cleveland Browns. And in their mind, they're thinking, when my contract's up, I'm going out to LA. They're thinking that. They're not saying it, but and I think they plan out their future. When I got here, I didn't expect to get cut by the Patriots. I thought I was going to play there for 20 years. But when I came here, my goal wasn't play here for a few years, go out and do Saved by the Bell. It was I want to finish my career playing football here. And now the mentality again, is it wrong or is it just the way they think today? They didn't have the idea of being a team like we did. The 7 years I was here, I'd say 9 of the guys on defense were on the team every year. And so, we knew each other, we knew families,
Right.
we had sat in the hospital with kids, with other teammates' kids, and, it was just a much closer connection than it was.
I think some of the guilt stems from agents, and we're gonna have that balancing act of brand. You are a brand, but it is. I mean, it is a business. It's a brand. And you got to get the money because you're risking your life out there. I don't care what anybody says.
Yeah.
Neck injuries. It's brutal. It's a brutal game, and at some point, it's probably going to be where you don't touch each other. It's going to be virtual. But you've got to get your money, and that's why you're there. I mean, at the end of the day, that's why the guy owns a team, and so it's about money. It's business, and that's what it is. What it is. Yeah. So as an agent, you're always saying brand, brand, brand. Yeah. But you got to balance that. You're also an employee, and today's generation coming up, there's no way.
And as much as I complain about it, I realize, I'm not stupid. I know that this is the way it is now. And I compare it to the way it was for us and why things were better for us in our situation. But it's different. Branding individual players is important, and it's just the nature of the beast now. So, I guess ultimately you don't have to listen to me, listen to these guys because they know how to, the people that work in it now know how to negotiate the current situation.
I think the guys deserve it. You're a good player, you're visible, you should capitalize on it. Why not? Everybody else is.
I just missed the time of being so committed to your team. When I played for the Browns, it felt the same as me playing for Notre Dame. Like I was part of something.
Do you think, as much as things have evolved almost at the speed of light, to the detriment of the things that we're lamenting are being lost, how much more is it going to change when it's not even an American game anymore? When you got a team in Barcelona and London.
Oh yeah, it's going there for sure.
And when that happens, then how important is any high school kid?
Yeah, first off, they've been trying to do that for years. The NFL Europe, they tried to do that. I'm actually an honorary member of the Milan Bulls, I think they are. Milan, Italy. I've never been there, but I plan to go during Fashion Week. Kind of do both at the same time.
Are you going to wear the Saved by the Bell outfit?
I'm going to wear the Saved by the Bell, something Screech gave me for my birthday.
Throw the hair out, throwback.
But I don't know. I hope it doesn't go global. And I think the one big sticking point, first off, is that when you go overseas, I think it's still kind of it's something that they get excited for briefly. But do you maintain a fan base over there? And secondly, what are you going to do? You're going to schedule your West Coast guys never to play the guys in Europe. Travel is going to be relentless,
right?
And so it makes it difficult. And I tell you, I hate the idea that it would become more than just an American game. We watch soccer being played across the world. We watch all these other, even baseball played all over the place, and football it was purely American. I mean, we did it here. We made it here in Ohio.
Yep.
And down in the Canton area, and it's something, and to take that away, I understand, you can't change progress. And if you see a market that's gonna bring you more money and do all that stuff, you're gonna go for it, but I don't know, I don't know that it'll work. They've been trying to do that for years. In fact, one of the years I was with the Browns, we actually went to London. We actually went to Stringfellows. That was a bar in London. We didn't really see London that much. And when I was with the Raiders, we went to Tokyo. And there's a bunch of kids out there wearing helmets and stuff, running around, and we taught them how to do everything wrong, so they'd be no good at it. Yeah, so right before the play, take your helmet off. and of course they'd bring sumo wrestlers down.
Yeah.
And
Like me.
but there's people like it, but is there a market? I guess they'll find out.
I know we have to wrap up because you've got to get to Akron for your show. Piss off some people, right?
Yeah, plan
Say
on it.
something.
Oh yeah, good stuff happened
Maybe I'll
yesterday.
call in. I'll bust your chops.
You know where
Why
to
not?
find me.
So
That
you're
was
right in my
quick.
neighborhood. We got to grab dinner with
Okay.
get together and I won't do it LinkedIn. I'll just call you or something. We'll
Okay,
figure it out.
yeah,
But
I just texted you so you have my number.
finally, jeez,
I don't know,
All week? All week?
This was the most time I spent on LinkedIn ever.
that's good.
Every
Yeah,
once
I'm
every
glad
6
we
months
get you
I'd
the
look in
times.
and go, okay, who's messaged me? Nobody.
What
All
if
right,
you
see you
miss?
next-
What if you miss some big deals that they want to do? Saved by the Bell 3 or something, and you might be missing out.
Well, I figure at that point I'll hear it on Jimmy Kimmel's show or something.
Jimmy Kimmel.
I used to tell people, if you ever get a text from me, somebody stole my phone.
Yeah, you're bad too.
That's me. It's
Yeah,
technology.
yeah.
You're bad. But if I miss out on text, my wife reminds me that my phone works because I get text all the time on that
Yeah.
level.
And my wife always says to me, you never answer your phone. And I'm like, God, did she find out? I always say, no, I was on the line with an important person.
Hey, unbelievable. Last question. What would you change without indicting yourself, but looking back as a young high school athlete and
Without
Well,
him indicting me too?
well, he'll get you off.
I'm the defense
Yeah,
Okay, that's right,
and-
yeah.
And you're not going to look for a contract with a team, so we can't help you there. But
Unless we size down the field to like half court,
you're not
then I
playing?
might be able to come
You're not
back.
playing?
Yeah,
No.
maybe
Okay.
a quarter.
Looking back and going through this process as a star high school player, going to college, going pro, what would you fix about your mentality of that process, or some decisions you made without maybe going too far, because we don't want you to.
Yeah, I probably would have worked out more. We didn't really have a weight room per se. We had weights in a room, but at Notre Dame, but we didn't really have a weight room. Nowadays they're spending
sounds
a
crazy.
bazillion dollars on these things. And they actually, think about it, these guys actually have to have matching plates to put on their bars. What the heck, come on. Sometimes we used to go, when we did leg press, we ran out of plates, so we used to put guys on top. Go
Yeah.
sit up there, how much do you weigh?
Wow.
And put them up there and just, do your stuff, and they go, that's like a ride. And maybe worked out more, but other than that, I wouldn't have changed anything. I would have played football, I would have wrestled. Like I said, the wrestling was so good that I did it in college too,
Yeah.
while I was playing at Notre Dame. And I think that everything you do brings something to you. And if something happens, then it's going to happen. You can't play in a bubble. It's just you're not going to get. You may get money out of it, but you're not going to get full enjoyment out of it. I see guys, they get nicked and they're take me out, and we didn't want to come out.
No,
It's my position. I'm not letting anybody else play this.
Yeah, and you'd lie and say you're fine, and
Yeah.
meanwhile you see, remember the vibration, the guy in the middle vibrating, you see
Yeah.
two players of the same guy, you definitely know you got a
We had
concussion.
those ammonia capsules.
Yeah, smelling salt, and, yeah,
I'm ready to go. Yeah.
it's different, there's a lot of legalities. And
Yeah, I wouldn't have
we can
changed.
own that.
I wouldn't have changed anything. Maybe I would have got that car from Michigan State, but that's a whole different.
Yeah. What's the radio? Are you guys pretty syndicated, or I know you're from Akron, or?
No, we're local. We're local, and I love it. I've done sports talk after I got done with Saved by the Bell for like a dozen years, and we spend about half the time local out in LA and half the time syndicated. And you know, you got 420 stations, and you're talking to pretty much everybody, but you know, you're all over the place. Local shows, you get a flavor. Yeah,
Right.
I mean, every time when I played and when I did, I worked for NBC doing NFL games for a while. Every time I went to a city, first thing I did, throw my stuff down and I turned on the radio, and I would go through the AM looking for a local talk show.
Smart.
Because it gave you a feel for what the people were thinking there, and it was comfortable, and it was like this. I don't know, it's not like it's Garrison Keillor, you know. And
I used to do the same
Did
thing
you
as
really?
a comic when I go to a different city, is turn on AM and listen to their talk radio
Find out what's
what was
pertinent,
going
yeah.
on in town.
Yeah, it's just with a comfortable feeling,
Yep.
and I've always liked the idea of a local show, and that's why I love what we're doing over at WNIR.
That's awesome.
100.1 FM.
See, there's the plug. Who's the better goalie, Mike or Bob?
I was the first one. First is always
He's
better.
grinding. I think he's gonna. With Junior and doing some other. Greeny him a little. I watch it every morning
Yeah.
or listen to it. I
Yeah.
try to, but it just doesn't feel right when I look at him. I just gotta go. Okay.
Yeah.
And then when your brother talks, I go, okay, I got it. He's been there, done it.
Yeah.
So it's.
Yeah, I just Greeny. I think my brother Mike knows very good at what he does and knows what he's doing.
Yeah.
But I think one of the greatest things that he got was Mike Greenberg. Every time my first syndicated show when Fox Sports Radio came out, and it was me and Chris Myers, and we did this radio, and it was so basically it was supposed to be a setup guy and an analyst, but you know, Chris, I think, saw it as wanted to be more of an analyst too. He wanted to get into it more. When you look at Greeny is a setup guy. He'll throw in his 2 cents, but he sets things up for other guys. And you always know what you're talking about when you're going to commercial, when you're coming back, you know what you're set up to do. We just kind of were winging it, you know, just kind of throwing it back and forth to each other. But we had fun doing it. But the point was Greenberg, I think, a setup guy like that is really important if you want to be that successful.
Well, what you be my setup guy?
There you go.
That's it. We're good. I got it.
I guess I still haven't said who's better.
No, you don't want to answer.
What do you think?
What's we?
Yeah, okay.
I appreciate your time greatly.
Pleasure.
It's lovely to have you on and growing up and watching and remembering good football as a young man, and I appreciate your time greatly. And
You know, 30 years ago, when they used to have cartoons on Saturday
I'm
morning,
only
I wouldn't
27.
have been here. Yeah, see, you wouldn't have been alive.
Yeah,
We used to have cartoons on Saturday morning.
I remember that.
That was the only time we could see cartoons.
We had cartoons before school, and I would miss my bus sometimes because I watched.
I remember when they used to show them before the movie started. In the
yeah.
theater.
You go to the theater still?
Oh, that's right.
You still go to the theater?
Yeah.
I go to the one in Cleveland Heights where I grew up, where you can have wine and watch the movie. Only
I've
one
seen
in the area.
those.
It's a great
I've seen
theater.
those.
Great
Yeah.
place.
My grandmother used to tell me when I was your age, movies were just a quarter. And I tell her, Grandma, the movies I go to, they're still a quarter.
Wow. Yeah, there's nothing worse than dropping your beer bottle and having listened to it roll down the seats. Because pretty much they didn't sell beer bottles there.
Yeah.
We were
You
young.
brought 'em in,
We
yeah.
were young and stupid, and we did things that you kids should never do.
Well, they get caught now
You can't
because
do it
social
anymore.
media, because of
Oh,
cameras.
yeah.
They can't do it. It's
Yeah.
not that
Yeah.
they're worse.
Mhm.
It's just there's more ways to get caught.
Yeah.
So,
Yep.
awesome, guys. Appreciate everybody that did tune in
Thanks.
live, and Michael Chiselka.
It was
Lovely
great.
to see
Thanks,
you.
sir.
Yeah.
I'm sure we'll be.
Pleasure.
We're gonna connect. Cigars? Nothing. I mean, you didn't answer.
When I was
Nutrifit shake? Something?
No, kidding me, I'm as good as I'm gonna get. When I was out in LA, we actually belonged to the Beverly Hills Cigar Club.
Oh, that sounds
Which,
good.
and it was, we went in, they had a whole room that was a humidor. And they had boxes all over the place, and everybody would rent a box. You'd go there and they'd be trading Cubans for Dominicans and things like that.
Let's go.
And I just pretty much said,
Sounds good.
okay, because I love the smell of cigars. I just hate the taste in the morning.
In the morning.
In the morning, you
Yeah.
wake up and you're like, the
Yeah.
hell.
It doesn't matter if you brush your teeth a million times. It's
Doesn't
gonna be-
matter,
Yep.
doesn't matter. The smell at night is fine.
All right, big
That's
guy.
a
We don't want you to
theme
be
for a
late.
whole
We're gonna
different
make
show.
this guy late.
Exactly.
Beautiful show, fun. Don't want you to be late.
Pleasure.
Appreciate it.
Thank
I'll
you
reach
very
out
much.
to you, not
Okay.
today, and then we'll.
Okay,
we'll
yeah, let me
connect.
rest. I'm
You're all burned out.
Yeah, I've gotta go attack the other side.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's awesome though, because I get tired of talking about sports, to be honest, sometimes.
come on sometime.
We'll do
Oh,
it.
you're not so bad.
I-
Sometime.
I did Trib at Hooley with Cribs, because we do a camp every year.
Right.
And then I called in and I'm like, okay, when I was younger, I couldn't stand Trib.
Mhm.
I'm like, this guy's crazy. And now that I'm older and I look at things from that perspective, you go, you know what, my dad was right.
Yeah.
They're right. And now we're so divided because the media's forcing it.
Yeah.
Like I catch myself going, is this person looking at me weird? Or it's just sad because being an athlete, you just loved each other.
Yeah.
You never even, I remember playing and looking at guys and it was never.
And that's what's upsetting about this, then getting back to the kneeling thing. It's just frustrating that the camaraderie that everybody has is being infringed upon by this, because the guys that are kneeling are
Black,
kneeling.
white,
The guys that
yeah.
aren't kneeling they're putting up with it.
Right.
You know, they're putting their hand on their shoulder, trying to do something, but it's still, you know, why are you doing this? You know, it's a tough thing.
I wouldn't do it. I would stand
You
and
know,
say I'm done.
I would walk behind a player and I would lift him up. I would hold him up until, of course, he swung at me, and then I'd put him back down.
Well, when the Villanueva, she's a Steeler fan, and that's why we
I
don't
put
get
them
along.
all down.
We don't get
Yeah.
along. When he went out, I mean, this guy has been through it. He served our country,
Mhm.
and then he did what was close to his heart, and then he apologized later. I was so mad. I said, "I'm done.
A lot of
I'm
people,
done."
a lot
I was
of people were
angry.
mad about that.
I was angry. That's why I got angry.
Army Ranger, and he talked about, and we thought that was the reason, and he came out and said it was all because he got stuck outside, and God, it hurt
No,
me.
he didn't.
A lot of veterans, on my show, listen, a lot of veterans were pretty upset
Yeah,
about that.
that's what was the straw for me. I was like, I'm done watching this stuff. And that's one thing I mean, I don't like Steelers, but I like him. He's a good player.
Yeah.
He's just a solid, guy, and comes back after serving and then makes the team. But
I tell you, I don't like Steelers either, but I respected them back in the day when we had the rivalry.
yeah,
When I played against
the
Mike,
real rivalry. Yeah,
when I played against Webster twice a year.
he's a great
Oh my
center.
God, he was amazing.
Yeah.
I'm just still blown away that he's dead and nobody on his own team could save him. And that he didn't reach out to anybody.
He crashed and got real sick.
Yeah, he got, and I think he might have been I don't want to say one of the first cases of CTE, but he got nailed for forging prescriptions. And usually when you're doing that, it's like pain pills and stuff. And he was forging prescriptions for Ritalin, just because it kept him focused. I mean, he was just taking handfuls trying to get him to be able to focus, and so.
You look at like Jim Otto and guys in the Raider, and they can't even get dressed. You can't, and then when they start pulling their money and talking about we need to pull your pension, it's going, you know what? It's greedy, but they've gotten better. I think the guys make good money, but baseball is where.
But good things happen to him. Like I saw at the Hall of Fame, I saw Zonka. I met him, and his nose is straight now. So evidently,
Straight
the alumni are doing
He was
something.
tough. He was tough. Larry Zonka was tough.
Yes, he was.
Is this thing-
Thank you. Very, very nice. Thank you.
Appreciate it. We'll connect.
Pleasure.
Michael,
Thank you.
As always.
Thank you
Are
very
you
much.
going to the office?
Yeah.